Hey guys, today I thought about doing a different video. How about the top 5 albums that drove me into metal? That were the catalysts for me to go from whatever I was listening to at the time as a teenager into being a metalhead. I thought this would be a really cool topic of discussion. I want to share with you what those 5 albums are, but at the same time, I want you to think about what your 5 albums are and then use the comment section below and let us know what are those 5 iconic albums for you. They're not necessarily iconic albums in the world of metal, but iconic albums for you that were really the catalyst, the driving force behind you becoming the metalhead that you are today. Let us know in the comment section, but now check out what my 5 are. And we're going to start with number 5, Angel Dust, Faith No More. The reason I picked this record is because this was the first CD that I ever purchased. My parents bought me a stereo, and this was my first ever purchase for that stereo, my first ever CD that I owned. And it had a big impact on me. I really believe Faith No More has a very eclectic sound, has a very specific sound. And that sound and the way they put songs together, specifically on this record, allowed me to be able to open my mind to different genres, to different bands, to different approaches, to different styles. So I truly believe that the fact that I have an eclectic taste in metal and music today, it's due to Faith No More. And because I was introduced to Faith No More through this record, I really have to pick this as one of my top 5 iconic albums that were really the catalysts behind me being the person that I am today as far as musical tastes are concerned. Number 4, Pantera with Cowboys from Hell. Now, the reason I picked this album is because this was the record that introduced me to Pantera. A friend of mine, his sister was visiting us in Portugal from the States. She brought the CD with her, and I remember him coming over to my house and saying, dude, you got to listen to this band. We've never heard anything like this before. You got to listen to it. And the moment I listened to it, I was immediately captivated by the aggression, by that southern stank that they had into their music. Obviously, Dimebag Darrell's riffs, the grooviness of them. Everything about this band really allowed me to gravitate towards them. Even Phil Anselmo, his persona, the way he looked on stage, the way he acted, everything about this band was really up, down, and into my alley of pleasures as far as music was concerned. So this was the record that really allowed me to discover Pantera. I remember the moment I picked up this album, not too long after Vulgar Display came out, and that was an immediate pickup for me. And from that point on, I was immediately a fan of Pantera. I've been a fan since, and I know the reason is Cowboys from Hell. This album just had a lot of different components at the time that you're really not getting from other bands, that just really opened my eyes to a different approach, to a different sound, and I just really connected with it. So I really believe, in my opinion, in my mind, Cowboys from Hell is definitely one of the catalysts for me being the metalhead that I am today. Now, number 3, Overkill with Years of Decay. This album, this band is extremely overrated. Now, the reason I picked this album is because this was my introduction to Overkill. I first heard Elimination. That was the first ever track from Overkill that I listened to. So the moment I listened to that song, I had to pick up the record that had that song in it, and this was it. The moment I listened to the album, I quickly discovered that this was not just a band that had that one incredible track and that was it for me. No, I absolutely enjoyed the whole record. I played ad nauseum. I couldn't get enough of Years of Decay. And by the end of it, I ended up going back and picking up all the albums that came before, and I've been picking up all the albums that have came since. So I've become a huge Overkill fan, and Years of Decay played a big role in that. I really like the style. I like Bobby Blitz's vocals. I like the guitars, how fast they were, aggressive. Everything about Overkill to me just screamed, F you to the system and right into your face. I really like that approach. I really like that sound. And I remember at the time I was listening to more like Metallica and Megadeth, and Overkill kind of changed the paradigm for me. It allowed me to then discover bands like Testament, Exodus around that same time. It just really changed what I felt thrash metal should sound like. It was just a band that really pushed the envelope, and a band that, in my opinion, really deserves to be in the discussion when it comes to the best thrash metal bands of all time. Now, in number 2, Seasons in the Abyss from Slayer. Now, why Seasons in the Abyss from Slayer? I discovered Slayer once again through this record. I saw the video for War Ensemble, and that was the song that introduced me to Slayer. Now, I had heard about Slayer up until that point, but I had never heard Slayer. There was a dude in my school that was absolutely obsessed with Slayer, and he would graffiti Slayer all over the place. Like spray painted on the walls, he would carve it on tables, he would carve it on concrete wall. Everywhere this guy would go, Slayer would follow. So I was familiar with the name of the band, but I wasn't really familiar with their sound. When I saw that video and I heard that song, I was like, "Whoa, this is Slayer." All right, now I need a little bit more. So then I pick up the record and I listen to this whole record, and to me, it's still one of their most complete records. I'm not saying it's my favorite record of all time as far as Slayer is concerned, but it's definitely one to me that's extremely iconic and that really drove me to then discover other albums before, like South of Heaven and Hell Awaits. All of that came after this. After discovering this album and listening to this whole album, I really like the aggression that they had. They were a little bit more on the edge of thrash metal as far as I'm concerned. I always felt that they were really pushing that envelope, that line between almost death metal and thrash metal. At that time, I just felt that they had so much aggression. They were the lyrics also. I really enjoyed the lyrical content. I always thought that the music and the lyrics with Slayer really go hand in hand, and the lyrics always spoke to me. I always felt connected to the lyrics of the songs, about the topics that they were talking about, the way they described those topics, the way they went into detail into it. I always felt a really deep connection with the lyrics and with their sound. So this album was really my gateway to Slayer, and I've been a fan ever since. Then I went to see Slayer during Divine Intervention. When that album came out, they went on tour, they came to Portugal. That was my first ever live show. So Slayer has always been one of those iconic bands in my life, and this album was my introduction to the band. Last but not least, Sepultura with Arise. Now, Arise and Beneath the Remains, this was a hard choice for me to make as far as which one was really, if I had to pick one album only that made me a metalhead, it's going to be between Beneath the Remains and Arise. But the reason I pick Arise is because I felt, looking back at that time, I felt that at that specific point in time in my life, it took me a little bit longer to digest Beneath the Remains than it did Arise. I fell in love with Arise a lot faster than I did with Beneath the Remains. I just thought, the more I look back into that point in time in my life, I think that at that specific point, I felt that Beneath the Remains was a little bit more raw and not as polished, and Arise had a little bit more, it was cleaner, if you will. It was a cleaner overall sound. And I remember that a friend of mine had Beneath the Remains and Arise on a tape, one on side A, one on side B. I was the only guy with two tapes. So through a period of a week, every day, he would come over and we would bootleg this tape for all of our friends. And at the time, I wasn't a metalhead at all. I wasn't listening to metal at all. So this was really my introduction to metal. And I remember at the beginning, it was noise. That's what it was to me. It was pure noise. And then and I was like, how do you guys listen to this? Like, I can't even make up the words. And the more I listened to it throughout that week, the more my ears became accustomed to the sound, accustomed to the vocals, to the guitars, to the drums, to everything. So by the end of the week, I was fully into it, and I wanted more, and I wanted more. I wanted other bands. Like, what other bands are there? Like, that's how I discovered so many other bands, was through Sepultura, through that 1 week stretch where I listened to Beneath the Remains and Arise. I really picked Arise because, like I said, I feel that it took me a little bit longer to digest Beneath the Remains. Arise was a quicker meal for me, if you will. And I remember not too long after that week, I saw the video for Arise on Headbangers Ball. And then that was what solidified my love for Sepultura and me as a metalhead. From that point on, I wanted the cargo army shorts. I wanted to let my hair grow, and I wanted to listen to stuff as heavy, as brutal as possible. So I really felt then, and I feel now, that Sepultura with Arise were really the #1 record that got me into metal. But this is it. This is my top 5. Now I want to hear about you. What are your top 5 albums that you feel that drove you into becoming the metalhead that you are today? Use the comment section. Let us know the albums. If you have a little bit of a story behind them, share that story. I really think this is going to make a great conversation topic. If you want me to do other top 5s, give me some ideas. What other top 5s you would like me to talk about? I think this is going to create some really cool discussions. So let me know your thoughts. What other top 5s are out there that you would like me to talk about? Let me know in the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.